You mentioned Wicked, and I finally
I
saw Wicked.
Yeah.
It was fucking terrible.
I still haven't seen
So
it.
let's talk about this. Like,
Okay.
this is something that needs to be said, because the I loved it and the hate it people are like diametrically opposed, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know the people who loved it, how the F that you actually love this. Now, did you see it or no?
I still haven't seen it. I'm the worst. I haven't seen it. There's so many movies I still need to see. I haven't seen it. I've not even seen the play.
So let's dig into me.
Okay.
Because I feel like there's something about me that's making me hate this, right? That is different from all other people. And I would like to dig into it a little bit. So let me give you my fresh take on why Wicked was terrible.
Okay.
All right. So first of all, everybody liked The Wizard of Oz because it was a well-formulated movie. It had plot lines and character arcs, and like it had everything you would want. It had morals, and it had an underlying sort of like message for whoever's watching. It was great to be able to walk through it and see the characters go through their thing, and you had villains and you had heroes and you had just great storytelling.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Wicked did not have that. Okay, here's what Wicked did. And I call this ambush predators, right?
Ambush predators.
Ambush predators. So you have these young, activist-minded theater kids, and I mention this all the time, that they can't wait to take the bludgeoning tool of their choice and hit you over the head with it. Like, they are sitting there as an ambush predator and waiting for the moment to tell you how much of an asshole you are and how terrible you are and how many bad decisions you make. And they wait for the opportunity to hit you with that. Now, as a consumer of entertainment, you don't want to be bludgeoned. You don't want to walk 5 steps into the zoo and the zoo to tell you that you're a terrible person. Because you're like, what the fuck? I wanted to see birds. And I like birds. Don't tell me that I'm a
like, why are you here looking at animals that have been captured and living in captivity?
Here's an owl. And this owl is only here because you're a fucking idiot. And this owl is better than you.
Suffering in a cage because you came to see it.
Exactly. Right? That is the worst thing to do. Like, I understand that theater kids want to take the things that they're passionate about and they want to float them in front of you so that you go seeing the movie and want to be a better person on the other side of it. The problem is the theater kids don't know when it becomes lecturing and when it becomes entertainment. Like, I'm there for the entertainment. If you can take a little thread of activism and like subtly put it in there without like making me feel like I'm an asshole because I went there, that's a good balance, right? Mm-hmm. Make it subtle, make it small, make me contemplate it, make it be my idea on the other side of seeing it. So Wicked, the main character, is a green witch, right? Mm-hmm. Before that, the Wicked Witch of the West was the asshole. She was mean. She didn't like Dorothy. Villain. She was the villain, right?
Yeah.
Let her be the villain. But what they did was took a known villain, just like they've done in, sort of the, what's the, I can't think of the name. What the comics? Like what's the name of the comics? There's two. Fuck.
I'm like, what comics?
Yeah, the brands of the superhero.
Oh, Marvel and
yes.
DC.
Yeah, DC.
Okay.
So just like in Marvel, they want to take a character that was the villain, and we were okay with them being the villain because they told the story, and somehow cast them in the shadow where it wasn't their fault. Let's give them trauma enough.
Like Two-Face.
Two-Face.
It was
or
Harvey Dent.
The Joker. Or
and he became
take all
Two-Face.
of them. And the theater kids decided they're going to take all of the villains and somehow make them noble in some respects, and then let us...
look, we did this to them.
Yes, exactly.
It's society's fault.
Let the people who are in the $20 a seat audience somehow make the villain the hero even for a moment and say, let's cast some doubt on whether or not Batman was the hero, or maybe Joker needs some of our sympathy or empathy for the way that they became. right?
Yeah.
And that push-pull, like, we were okay with just taking the villain and make them the freaking villain and make the hero and make them the... They wanted to add some whatever. Fine. Risky move, right? But it's risky, and you're on the hook for the risk that it entails. The Wicked Witch of the West is an asshole. And to make them into something where the... And since you didn't see it, I'm going to have to give you some backstory. Okay, so...
Was she bullied or something?
So here's the deal. Her parents, her mom had an extramarital affair. Fucked somebody outside to where she should have and had a green baby.
Okay.
So the green baby now is not only an embarrassment because... You know,
She's
the
green.
noble nature of extramarital affairs, but also now she's green. So from all of literary genius, the green baby is basically the symptom of an ignoble, is that a word, ignoble?
It is now.
Ignoble, right? Action. Your
Okay.
parents did this to you. They created the bastardization
You're a
of a
victim.
child. Now you're a green baby, and everybody should know you're the embarrassment of the community. You should be admonished, right? Okay, so storyline's great at this point.
Okay.
And honestly, from a literary standpoint, we wanted to use that storyline to make family and non-extramarital affairs the noble gesture, and the other thing to be the green baby deal. So let's tell the storyline to then when you're in the audience like, oh, I want to stay within my family. I do not want to have an extramarital affair because I might have a freaking green baby. Okay, so that aside,
Okay.
green baby now, when you walk up into university, right, there are three things that this green baby said. You eat grass, you're something or other, and you're something or other, right? And so every time she meets somebody, she says this, no, I didn't eat green grass, as the
I see.
comparison between why are you green, right? When it should be, yeah, my parents had an extramarital affair, and you should probably stick with your husband because that's probably this thing. Then it's the taking the comparison, which should be pretty easy, and saying, yeah, I'm the byproduct of bad behaviors and accept me. But they didn't do this once. They didn't do this twice. They didn't do this 3 times. There must have been 5 references, right, from cultural casting out the bad behaviors and just accept me from being green. And I felt by the 5th time, I was like, okay, well, that was a theme that was overplayed from go. Right? Mm-hmm. So, okay, as a person that maybe wants to go see Wicked, you got to be asking yourself, so what was the plot? What was the football spike? If Joe says that they overplayed the whole "you're green and you shouldn't be" thing,
Yeah.
what was the actual plot? There was fucking none.
Is it literally
There was
just
fucking none.
She's green.
She's green.
Now she's on the defensive.
She's in university.
For having to deal with it.
She's trying to learn magic.
And finally it gets to be too much and she turns bad. And
No,
now
I
she's
don't even
bad.
know if she turns bad. Like, the storyline was
Well, you know this is part 1.
Yes.
There's 2 parts to Wicked.
Oh, dude, if I have to sit through another fucking 3 hours of that shit,
Well,
I'm going to go
Do you
crazy.
think it in any way that this is just sort of leading up to what is going to happen in part 2? That part 1 is just a lot of backstory?
and it's just like the really hot blonde that says that you're going to get sex on the 9th date, and everything in between is something that you just have to endure until you get the ninth day sex, right? So yes, sure. The storyline will completely make sense. The character arcs will finally absolutely make sense. There will be some moral to the story. Sure. After 3 hours, if you couldn't constitute this storyline to mean something, I'm not bought in for number 2. That means another $20 ticket, another sitting through that bullshit for nothing whatsoever. Like, Wizard of Oz fans, if you read the origin story of the books that were written long time ago, right, that went into making, like, they were a lot to get through because they were very dark and they were children's tales about very dark conceptual ideas. I would rather sit through the original books and endure that terribleness than what should be a more sophisticated version of that storytelling that was terrible in every facet that there is. So I will tell you, like, with the first time we talked about Wicked, I was not a fan of it even before watching it. I am a time 10's not fan now after having seen it.
So if I'm hearing you right, basically it sounds like, are you saying you don't like it because, unlike The Wizard of Oz, where consequences clearly happen based off of wrong choices.
Yes.
And in the end, you learn how it should have been. In Wicked, they almost celebrate the bad choices.
Well, I can't say celebrate it, but they almost...
Well, they excuse away, and it's like the whole Luigi thing. He murdered someone, but... look at everything he endured that drove him to it.
Yeah, it's
That's
that
like
kind of
Wicked.
it's that kind of bullshit where there was the opportunity to be able to tell a tale of moral good behavior, right? And then you're like, fuck that moral good behavior. Let me just tell the story of someone who's a total victim, and let's excuse all of their behaviors up to a certain point and give them like a one exponent on some attributes and character traits that we should, I'm not going to call celebrate. I'm going to call like highlight. That's it.
Yeah.
They highlighted a single attribute that made them tiny bit likable, right? And took all of the attributes of everybody else and made them magnified where they were not opposite of celebrated, which they were whatever.
Yeah. So is it kind of like years ago, my son had a little boy in his class that was just a jerk all the time. All the kids thought he was. All the parents thought he was. My son even got invited to a birthday party and wanted to know if this kid was going, because if he was, he's not going. And I checked with the mother, and the mother's like, no, we will never have that kid invited to a party. He's bad all the time. And up to a point, I tried to teach my son, look, for whatever reason, this kid's not happy. You don't know what he deals with at home. You don't know what he deals with his parents, with his life. Clearly, he is either upset or frustrated or angry at the world, and he's taking it out by being a bully, and we should maybe give him a little grace. To a point. At some point, knock that fucking kid out. Like, pardon my language, but...
No pardon. That's required.
Yes, like, if you have to defend yourself... at some point, the grace has run out. And so did it feel sort of like it was like that with Elphaba or whatever the name is? Like,
no, well, what's missing is the redeeming qualities that make you sort of like turn a blind eye to everything that is terrible about their character. You got to be good at something. Like, that's what the point of a superhero is, that there's some fatal flaw of the character that makes you like, they're not all great. But look over here, they're freaking awesome in this department. And that's a balance, the contrast between those two things. Elphaba was a douchebag, and there was no redeeming qualities other than her being green and everybody feeling sorry for the fact that she was green. She wasn't great at magic. She wasn't great at bringing people together and creating great institutions. There wasn't a redeeming quality to buy into Elphaba. She was just a douchebag.
She was just the victim.
That's it.
And played the victim.
Victim, villain, douchebag. And she should have been, a house should have been dropped on her, and all these little people should have celebrated the death of somebody in such douchebaggery.
So it's not even like in the case of Batman in Two-Face, where Harvey Dent says, eventually you live long enough to watch yourself become the villain. But he wasn't. He was the good guy for so long and turned back. Not even the case.
Not even the case.
This is, you
all
were
douchebaggery.
a victim, and then you stayed a victim, and then you just stewed in your victimhood, and it made you angry until you were a villain.
For half a second, theater kids made you feel guilty for the victim, but then there weren't any redeeming qualities to balance out that victimhood. And you're like, oh, that really sucks for you, but you're still a douchebag. There was not a big imbalance, like on the other side of it, to be like, oh, that's what you were, but now you're this. Like, you couldn't even cheer for the victim.
Yeah.
I want a house dropped in Elphaba now, right? I want to see her entrails scattered upon the ground
my God.
now, because everything that she dealt with, oh, that's so sad. But fucking drop the house on her ass because she's still a douchebag.
Yeah, that's kind of like the feeling I get where, will I give to charity? Sure. But is there a point that the person receiving charity has to put in some work to better themselves?
They have to be great. And she wasn't great. It was just a story of victimhood. So all those theater kids are just like lamenting, and they're just like stewing in the victimhood. And they're like, let me just throw some more, like, all right, here's a cute owl that's awesome. I can tell you about how much they can fly and all these great things. They go, I'm not going to do any of that. I'd be like, here's an owl. You're an asshole because you're killing the trees that the owls love. And you're an asshole because you're burning down forests. Nothing about the owl. I'm never going to tell you the reason why you should feel proud and great about protections of the owl. I'm just going to call you an idiot for everything you've done to hurt this owl. And have a great day here at the Pittsburgh Zoo.
And I could even almost understand the whole, if the Wicked Witch of the West came back and was evil then to all those people that made her feel some kind of way. But no, it's I'm now a villain and I go after Dorothy that showed up here, that didn't mean to, that isn't trying to hurt anyone. You know, now it's like, well, I'm a villain to everyone because I felt some kind of way back then with other people that have nothing to do with today.
The purpose of storytelling is to let the people in the audience become better after having seen the thing. So they have some kind of virtue that they haven't been able to achieve under normal daily lives. But now that they've seen that movie, they're like, oh, I took my family for granted and I pursued, sort of like selfish interests. And I met people who needed my help. Like all of these things had a story to tell. Is that I'm going to be better. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be better. And these movies don't do any of that. They don't make the audience better. It's only the capitulation of making the audiences feel worse about that they are more of a victim when they've stepped in that theater.
It's pushing the idea that you should just accept when someone else is in the wrong.
Yeah, the audience is like, oh, I judged the green girl, and I probably shouldn't judge the green girl. I burned down some firewood in my fire pit, so I'm terrible because I hate the trees. Like, all of this is nonsense, and it doesn't make the audience any better. I will never buy another ticket to any of these movies that all they do is trounce the good humanities that should be coming out of this, instead of all of the,
It's giving the villain a free pass.
Yes. And making
blaming
excuses.
The good people.
Yes. And taking every stereotype, right? The wrong stereotypes. The stereotypes are the ones that like make us giggle a little bit about, like Galinda, right? The stereotypes of Galinda. Let's take the good witch and make her into an idiot. And let's take the bad witch who has all the characteristics of being the douchebag that she is and making them admirable in a way and celebrate. Like, this is total douchebaggery. Like, I cannot tell you how terrible this movie was on a level of humanities and also entertainment and give it negative 19 stars.
But now you have to see the second one. You have to see what they do with it.
I will only see the second one. I will make this as long as $0 come out of my pocket to see it. If they make it free, I will watch it. There's no way I will reward any producer, any writer, or anybody for making this terrible movie or series of movies. I already paid the $20 for the first one, and I feel like they owe me $40. There's no way I pay another $20 ever.